Hello and a very warm welcome to the Big Bright podcast. My name's Emma and today we are lucky enough to have Duncan Copeland with us, Account Director at Fresh Egg, a digital marketing agency who are driven by customer experience. Seeing as every business is promoting to a desired audience and customer, putting them first seems like a no-brainer. But this isn't always the case. It's easy to develop tunnel vision after building or working in a business for a number of years, and more often than not, we start to market to ourselves rather than to the customer. Over lockdown, Duncan has seen many of the brands he works alongside take the time to pause, take stock, and measure their marketing efforts in order to attack the rest of 2020 with a clear set of objectives. And he's the man who is helping to guide and implement their new strategy. Welcome, Duncan.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks for having me.
So, just to begin with, I feel I cannot go any further without mentioning one of my favourite facts about you, the fact that you're highly allergic to egg and you work for a company called Fresh Egg.
Yeah. Thanks for, well, there was a lovely intro to start with, and then I feel like the only reason you've invited me is to lull me in under the guise of talking about digital marketing, and then you just really want to make egg jokes. I wonder if we should try and get as many egg puns in as possible. Maybe that's like a little game we could have. Okay. See how many puns we can get in by the end.
I'm going to try and concentrate with the questions and an egg pun.
Yeah, it's a cracking
Smashing.
idea.
Tell us a little bit about your career in marketing so far and how you've come to work for Fresh Egg.
Yeah, so I actually started my career working in-house, mostly kind of e-commerce roles, a number of different sectors. And I feel like I was lucky because in that early part of my career, I did lots of different kind of hands-on practical elements of marketing. So I wrote content, I oversaw paid campaigns, I optimized for SEO back in the day when it was all about kind of keyword stuffing and all the black hat tactics that we've now of come away from. Ran email marketing campaigns and even got to work on a bit of kind of above the line as well. So that gave me a really good grounding, both in terms of like the technical side of lots of different disciplines, but also understanding the types of challenges that in-house teams face, which has stood me in really good stead. Yeah, and that set me up really nicely for when I joined Fresh Egg in 2015, which has flown by that it's been that long. Started senior account manager first and then account director. So day to day, I guess at the minute, that means I work really closely with our clients, helping them to plan and implement their strategies. That can be 1-2 work streams. That's sometimes multi-channel stuff. Yeah, and then I get to work really closely with the teams and ultimately implement all of the strategies that we're putting in place and deliver value, which means a lot of video calls at the minute. So it's nice to get out. Zoom. Yeah, Zoom, Teams, Skype for Business, Slack, everything.
Because you're based in Worthing, aren't you? So it's exciting. We are, coming into Brighton.
I know.
It's a whole half an hour away.
I know. It's a half an hour away, a train ride for the first time with the mask. A lovely view from the Bright offices. Yeah, it made the trip worthwhile.
So you work alongside a really wide range of brands across different industries. So you've probably had an overarching view on how lockdown has affected the different businesses. So I'm sure some have thrived and others have struggled to maintain their original offerings. So how's it been for you?
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. It goes without saying that it has been really tough for a lot of businesses. We've had some clients that have been forced to close their entire kind of frontline operations at the start of lockdown. Then at the other end of the spectrum, we've had clients who are dealing with unprecedented demand, which is a challenge in itself. So that's been really interesting, albeit at the other end of the spectrum. We work with a number of charities, which has been a really intriguing one to kind of get under the skin of. Their challenge has been a lot of their physical fundraising effort. So the types of stuff they'd normally be doing, whether that's kind of stores or people running marathons, all that kind of stuff, that's obviously all been cancelled. So they're having to move to a kind of more digital fundraising effort to keep that money coming in. So for a couple of those charities, we've been doing things like helping them run A/B testing experiments to try and drive more donations at this time, trying to change messaging so that it's kind of more relevant with people's current situations. And they've been really successful. So that's been really great that we've been able to help some of those businesses.
So you're trying to reach the same audience just in a different way, an online way.
Yeah, exactly. It's the audience that would otherwise be fundraising in different ways, I guess, and trying to use whether it's their database or whether it's the traffic that's hitting the website to kind of try and capture as many people as possible.
And how quickly did you have to kind of pivot and change that strategy? Was that within a week or did you?
Yeah, I mean,
that's crazy.
It was pretty crazy. The last 2 weeks of March, I guess it would have been, were really, really crazy. Obviously, there was a whole load of uncertainty just generally with everybody, whether business, family life, everything. And it meant that a lot of the strategies and a lot of the workflows that we had in place all kind of had to be completely reviewed. Some of the strategies had to be torn up and completely reworked because the objectives that we had in place just simply weren't either feasible or relevant.
Your clients were relying on you to help guide them into the new direction, even though you didn't necessarily know where that new direction was.
Yeah, exactly. And that, that again, it was a challenge in itself. And we kind of quickly established this kind of 3-step approach where we were like, right, the first thing we need to do is respond. You need to do that immediately within days. And then it's thinking about, right, what are the next steps to do after that? Because it's very easy to get bogged down in all of that chaos. And then as we've moved from response into kind of trying to get back to some kind of normality, is planning for then the kind of phase that we're in at the minute with a lot of our clients, which is like planning for the new normal and planning for what comes after. I know the phrase at the moment, the new normal, whatever that might look like.
And have you been doing anything on like TV advertising? Because I guess there's been an increase of people actually using that as a medium.
Yeah, it's really interesting in that I've been speaking to a lot of businesses and a lot of other agencies about how there's extra value in TV at the minute, and a lot of digital channels as well, actually, where some businesses who've been really, really unfortunate and kind of having financial implications who've had to pull back on some of their advertising spend, which has meant that slots that were pre-booked on TV or whatever are now vacant. So there's lots of value, snapping them up, and the value there if you're lucky enough to be in a position where that's viable for your business. And I guess we know you're spending more time. We're not going out as much. We're not seeing family and friends as often as we were. So we're spending a hell of a lot of time on our devices and online and watching TV. So it's almost like there's a more engaged audience in a weird way throughout all of this.
Definitely. The emphasis on becoming more present online has meant some brands have had to change and adapt their strategy quickly, as we've just talked about. Your mission at Fresh Egg is to develop audience-first strategies. So do you have any examples of clients you've helped to do this over lockdown?
Yeah, I mean, the audience-first approach is something that we've been huge advocates of for a number of years, and it's kind of central to everything we do, as you mentioned in the introduction. But I kind of feel like it's been more important than ever with the current situation. And yeah, we've been working with London estate agent group CareFH since 2015. So we've helped ensure that they've got an audience first strategy in place already. But obviously, as we mentioned a little earlier, that strategy's had to kind of massively adapt since the start of March and the lockdown started to take effect. So they were one of the businesses where their frontline operation kind of effectively closed down completely. So our strategy of focusing on driving leads to the front line of the business had to be completely reworked. So rather than focusing on leads, what we did was switched up that approach so that everything we were doing was around helping customers in whatever way that we could. So we set about kind of gathering insight into how those key audiences were searching, what types of information they were after, what kind of challenges they were coming up against. And, as you can imagine, and with the property market, there was a ton of uncertainty around what you could and couldn't do, and people who were in the middle of transactions. So it was a really stressful time for people. So we kind of researched the kind of things that people were searching for and then made sure we created content that answered those needs. So
I love that. I think that's so clever.
It sounds so simple, doesn't it, when you say it like that? But yeah, it's been really effective.
Well, what else can you do apart from just be there and as like an authority for those questions? And because it's always the same, isn't it? If you help people, they'll remember that and then they'll come back to you. Yeah,
and I think the thing that's been really good is it's been effective from a point of view that we've helped existing customers who are looking for information. You're in the middle of a house move. What does this mean? What happens next? But also because we created that content digitally, seeded it out there via social channels, but just simply having that content on the website that works really effectively organically anyway. We've had new audiences discovering CareFH for the first time because they're heading to search and searching for coronavirus property related.
So has it boosted their SEO? Are they now, appearing for those terms?
We looked at specific terms that were relevant and created content around that matched the audience needs. And yeah, they've gained visibility for some of those coronavirus property related terms. And obviously they're not going to be around forever, so that's not a long-term strategy, but it just shows that if you can create the right content that people are searching for, then it can be really, really effective.
And that will create a long-lasting benefit via Google as well, because I'll have seen that there was, a surge of traffic.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things that overarching principle for me and a lot of the clients that we work with is it just really highlighted the need to be really agile in the way you work. You might have had any success during that initial period if it takes you 10 weeks to get content created, and then it has to go into a development sprint cycle. And by the time it's live on the website, either your competitors have done a better job or it's no longer relevant.
There was a lot of copycat, wasn't there, stuff going on?
Yeah, and I guess it means that you have to focus on having those processes in place. And hopefully, I think we've certainly as an agency, we've got better at that, working with our clients at being really agile. And I think it's a really good lesson to learn that you do need to be really agile, and you have to have those processes that are in place so that you can react really quickly to stuff like this.
Absolutely. And talking of change, that I'm a firm believer that although sudden change might be difficult to manage, it does force us out of our comfort zones and it does inspire new direction.
Yeah.
So obviously we've seen restaurants switch to home delivery and fitness industry has gone online.
Yeah.
So everyone's had to adapt in some way. How have you and your clients approached the change in strategy going forward?
Yeah, those changes have been really interesting, haven't they? I think one of the positives, if you can call it that, to come out of this pandemic is changes that have been really beneficial for customers have happened virtually overnight that might necessarily have taken 5 years
and
otherwise.
Might stay around as well.
Exactly. And going back to the property market example, things like virtual tours and being able to go online and look at a property digitally without even having to step foot outside your house is a real bonus.
Especially if it's in Cornwall or something.
Exactly. I mean, when we were house searching, like the amount of properties that you walk into and you go straight away, nope, not for me, doesn't look like the pictures, don't like the vibe or whatever, to be able to really effectively see what a property's like before having to leave
and that was
the house.
happening like on a very small scale, wasn't it? The more upmarket property places were doing it, but now it's kind of across the board and everyone's having to rush to keep up.
Yeah, and that's when it comes down to customer behaviours changed, right? And that's why you should always put the audience at the heart of everything that you do, because yes, it might initially be quite a costly investment to put that kind of tech in place, and yes, you might have to think really carefully about processes and all those kind of things, but ultimately customers are now becoming used to that kind of thing, and they're expecting it. And if you're not doing it and your competitors are doing it, then you're going to start falling behind.
It's a virtual kick up the bum.
I know, exactly. And that's, those changes that I mentioned that might have taken 5 years to come into play have kind of happened overnight. And then another thing that's kind of really important is understanding what success looks like and how you're going to measure it. That's really, really key. That's important at any point, but again, it's become increasingly important in the current situation. One of the tools that we've been using really effectively to do that is Data Studio and creating kind of Data Studio dashboards. And if you're not familiar with Data Studio, it's Google's free data visualization tool, I guess. It comes with a load of out-of-the-box connectors to things like Google Analytics. And what it enables you to do is take all of that data that's in Google Analytics and other platforms and visualize it and kind of create bespoke reports that include all the information that you want to look at.
That's cool. I've never heard of that.
Haven't you? It's amazing. You should check it out. And it's so simple to use.
It's free.
It's free. It's so simple to use. So I'm not particularly technical and I can create dashboards and reports and that kind of thing. It's really, really valuable and really powerful if you can connect multiple data sources to it, and you can link it up to a Google BigQuery and you can get really, really clever with it. But even in its most basic form, it allows you to visualize your data or your client's data. So where we've been using that is by making our internal reporting really efficient. So as you can imagine, like you can spend ages trawling through Google Analytics data on clients' reports. So what we do is create Data Studio dashboards of the key data and the kind of normal places that we look, and then you can spend more time looking at insight and trying to understand or maybe dig deeper.
Rabbit hole.
Exactly. And you know what it's like, you go into Google Analytics and then like an hour later you're like, oh, gone down a total rabbit hole here. Whereas these dashboards just give you a really quick visual. And where that's also really important is with clients. So you've obviously got stakeholders at clients who are always interested in their data, but at the minute that interest probably goes up a level or two higher than it has been in the past. So you've got kind of C-suite, if they weren't already interested in what was happening on a day-to-day basis, they very much are at the minute in the current situation. So to be able to take what can be quite technical, nuanced data or even phrases and different categorizations of data, be able to visualize that in a way that somebody non-technical can understand really quickly is really, really powerful.
Like with reports, you can bamboozle people
exactly,
with all the figures, and actually sometimes a graph or something like a pie chart can really easily show what you're trying to say in a whole paragraph of text. So.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really easy to adapt in Data Studio as well. So if you've got kind of 2 or 3 reports in there, if you're like, oh, we've launched a new product, or actually this part of our business has become really important right now, you can add a new page, pull some new data in and adapt it and change it. So it's kind of like an evolving thing as well. So it's really, really powerful. I'd really recommend anybody checking it out if they haven't already.
Cool. Well, we'll definitely link to it in our supporting blog post for this podcast.
Yeah, sounds good.
For those looking at their marketing strategy and wanting to ensure it's along the right lines for the next 12 months, do you have any handy tips or secret hints on how to measure their current activity in order to make changes?
Yeah,
it's a big question.
It's a big question, yeah.
If you could just give us all your insights over 12 months.
So, I mean, I think in terms of how I'll be approaching it, I think it's about those key fundamentals. I feel like I've said a couple of times, it's always been really important, but it's even more important now. And I think it's coming back to those fundamentals of creating a digital strategy or a single channel strategy or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Firstly, understanding your audience and their needs if you don't already. And there's various different ways that we could do that. We could have a whole other podcast on that, but really getting into the data. And if you can, speaking to customers and gathering insight from actual customers is really, really valuable as well. And then using all of that insight to secondly, put a strategy in place to meet those needs. When I say put a strategy in place, that's not, we've seen here, it's not put a strategy in place in January or at the start of the financial year and then you can put that away for the rest of the year. You need to be constantly reviewing that and adjusting it and making it agile, as I've said a couple of times as well. And then to understand whether that's working or not, the third point would be measurement and, as I said, refining that strategy or refining the activities and the plans that you're working on. So those three things, I think, understanding the audience, having an agile strategy in place, and then making sure that your measurement of all the activity that you're doing is spot on. And those are the kind of the fundamentals that I would recommend that any business looks at. And then I think, again, that overarching thing that I mentioned earlier is the importance of being agile and making sure that any work that you're completing or any content that you want to get on your website or campaigns or whatever it is, that you can do that really quickly and effectively. I guess sometimes not worrying about that final percent of is that button better there or that word, like
the whole fail fast mentality, isn't it?
Let's just get it out there and measure whether it's working or not, or test it or whatever it is. We're all guilty of that, spending a month talking about something and not kind of just being clear, making a decision and getting on with it. And I think, again, the current working situation where you've got people spread all over of different locations and working from home, and the amount of physical meetings obviously decreased. We still have our virtual meetings, but yeah, being able to just make really clear decisions and just get on with it. And
that's
get
really
it out
what
there.
Your clients are looking at you to do, aren't
Definitely.
they? Because they're really busy trying to change what they're offering.
Yeah.
So it's up to you to advise on actually make those decisions really quickly, be ahead of the competitors.
Yeah, and
just go for it, have the confidence.
And that's what I love about my role, where I'm kind of almost like the link between the clients and our technical teams. Obviously, our technical teams are working really closely with our clients as well. But, KFH as an example, I've been working with them for 5 years. So I feel like I've got a really, really good understanding of not only their business, but their market. So that's where we can kind of handle things for them. We're having obviously regular catch-ups with them, but we're able to instinctively kind of know the right path or know the right suggestions to make or know the right things to put in place and be able to move really quickly and ultimately provide value, because that's what we're here for as marketeers. Whether you're internally in-house or whether you're at an agency, it's all about providing value and about providing value to that business.
Yeah, that's a great point to finish on, I think. And thank you so much for joining us.
No problem at all. Thank you.
I feel like there was some really good stuff in there.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. And if anyone's got any questions or anything, then happy to be contacted on LinkedIn or whatever that might be to see how I might be able to help.
Yeah, we'll put your LinkedIn info and also the link to Fresh Egg if anyone's interested, because I know you're doing quite a lot of webinars at the moment. Yeah,
we're doing webinars, and we're always just open for a chat about what challenges you're currently facing and whether we can be of any help and support at all. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening. Please remember to subscribe to ensure you never miss an episode. You can find out more top tips from the Bright team on our website at bright-interactive.co.uk.